This video is supported by Squarespace. Hey, Marcus House with you here. Today I've got quite a diverse range of topics. Starbase in Texas seeing colossal ships in movement, but so much more. We have another amazing Starlink launch enabling even more flexible connections to the internet than ever. ESA is selecting a new launch provider for the Euclid Telescope, and ULA's Vulcan finally receives that installation that we've been waiting all year for. The Crew 4 mission appears to have been delightfully boring. Some interesting updates on the Firefly mission, not quite as smooth as it may have first appeared, and yes, a few other incredible things to talk about too.
Okay, Neil, we can see you coming down the ladder now.
Now, last week we left SpaceX's Starship 24 stacked on top of Booster 7 for the very first time. Well, that was kind of short-lived because the day after my video went live on Sunday morning, the pad was cleared. They were about to destack the colossal vehicle. Oddly enough, they didn't close the road as well, but seeing as SpaceX only has 5 weekend closures per year allocated, I can see why they would keep these open unless absolutely necessary. Not long after, the quick disconnect arm rotated away from the booster, and Ship 24 was lifted up off Booster 7 by the chopstick arms as captured beautifully by NASA spaceflight. Slowly the arms pivoted around and began to lower to return the 50-metre tall beast back to the transport stand. Now, debate at the time of stacking was persistent around all of the various channels that we follow, many thinking that SpaceX would actually be going for a static fire test for the first time fully stacked, and others thinking that this was just a fit check. I was personally thinking that a full cryogenic fill test could be done with liquid nitrogen before destacking to continue with static fire tests, but that was really just a guess too. Regardless, SpaceX appeared to be treating the process with all the caution that you would expect. This tweet by Elon demonstrates the caution very clearly, emphasizing that a rapid unscheduled disassembly on the pad would set Starship progress back by around 6 months. That is certainly true. We really do not want to see this behemoth exploding on the pad. So is the next step to see some more static fire testing? We haven't seen the expected final static fire testing with Booster 7 as we head towards a full set of 33 engines firing. It could also be that there have simply been issues with the first stacking which needs to be resolved before attempting it again. Last week it seemed like SpaceX were having quite a few hiccups with that process. Thanks to this sped up footage here posted by CSI Starbase using Lab Padre's livestream footage, we can see this. When Booster 7 is sitting on the orbital launch mount alone, it is actually tilted here slightly towards the integration tower. It doesn't quite line up. When the ship is placed on top, you can see that the booster is actually getting pushed back to align with the pins and the slots, but it doesn't seem to fit perfectly. Now, just to show the pins a little clearer, this is a much older, different full stack, but quite a clear shot of the pins just to show this in the higher quality. One of my favourite images of Booster 4 and Ship 20 in August last year, this one. That's why I've got it right here as well. Anyway, it seems that SpaceX did try to make some adjustments soon after. Ship 24 was lifted up for a short time after the first attempt to allow the teams to perform a few adjustments. Given the short time that it remained stacked overall, it seems like alignment adjustments are needed. Now, this all led to the most exciting spectacle of the week. Yep, on Wednesday evening, Ship 25 made its way out of the high bay to begin its journey over to the launch site. An amazing thing to note is that it basically has all of its heat shield tiles already installed. Once it arrived at the launch site, SpaceX's LR-11000 crane quickly hooked up. Just check out this shot here by Nick. Booster 7, Ship 24, Booster 8 and Ship 25 all lined up. A crazy future awaits. Ship 25 was lifted up and onto the pad. No Raptor engines installed at this point, as they will be simulating the thrust generated by the engines first to verify the integrity of the vehicle. Now wait, what is this? Just as we were expecting to confirm that Ship 25 was fully secured onto Pad A, Ship 24 decided to fully steal the limelight with the next stacking attempt. What an awesome shot seeing this double lift action. This time it looked like the ship's fit on top of the booster was a smoother process. Not long after, the ship quick disconnect arm was attached to the ship, with tests happening very shortly after as teams performed a full speed quick disconnect. That night, the team was back at it again, performing another Raptor engine swap on Booster 7. Over at the production facility, and thanks to some insights by the ring watchers, it seems that at least some sleeving operations have been moved into the Star Factory. This means that we may not be able to see as many updates with these smaller components as we have been used to all of this time, with the flipping and sleeving tasks done previously outside. So why do we say this? Well, a ship aft sleeve was spotted inside the Star Factory a few weeks ago in the upright orientation, and only a few days later it was spotted again, but upside down. It seems to have been turned over from within the factory itself. Another aft dome was also moved into the Star Factory, and a week later that had been sleeved, which we can see here by the weld lines. Based on all this, I think we may now only be seeing subsections being rolled into the factory and then full sections being rolled out as completed sections ready for stacking. So although we may not get to see quite the detail we've seen in the past, it is certainly a positive step forward at Starbase. Doing all of this work outside was fine during the initial prototyping, but it was always going to end up being done indoors. Just as with stacking the ships and boosters in the bays, there is less dust, and I'm sure it is a better working environment out of the weather. The stacking of Booster 10's methane tank continues, with it being lifted and stacked onto a 3-ring tall section. That is now 9 rings out of 13, so that is coming along nicely. Late in the week, the last section required for Booster 10 was moved into the staging area right in front of the Mega Bay, with stacking hopefully coming soon. That will complete 2 methane sections of boosters, with Booster 9 nicely visible here. The forward dome section for Ship 26 has been moved into the high bay, most likely to be placed onto the turntable for welding. Now, this forward dome segment was earlier reported to have been for Ship 27, but notice though that it is lacking the extra reinforcement band right around the dome. We can see this band here on Ship 24 just as an example, and it looks to provide a better support to spread out the extra weight above. Ship 26, as I've talked about in previous videos, does not have any payload hardware or a heat shield, so I'm wondering if this forward dome that lacks the reinforcement band may instead be used on that. Ship 26's nose cone assembly was also moved from the mid-bay back into the high bay, and that was swiftly hooked up to the bridge crane ready to be stacked on top of the forward dome. Not long after, the nose cone was lifted up on top, yet again completing another stacking event. To make room for this stacking, the partial tank section of Ship 26, consisting of the common dome and the middle liquid oxygen section, which was stacked last week, was moved over to the mid-bay. So yes, it is amazing to see all of this progress, especially with the full stacking as illustrated beautifully here by Tony Bela. We are truly witnessing the start of the next chapter in humanity's attempt to live not just on the planet we evolved on, but out there on other worlds as well. Now, I was lucky enough to finally meet Tony and also Brendan Lewis, who creates these helpful diagrams, while on a short trip away in Queensland, Australia. It was such a great honour to finally meet in person, and I've just got to thank Tony and the huge team of 3D artists that went to the trouble of shipping the Artists of Spaceflight 2022 calendar all around the world. It was signed by the many talented artists out there. So to all of you, thank you so much. This one is going straight to the pool room. That's a little Aussie slang there that you might need to look up as well. And also, I am super thrilled because I ordered Tony Bela's new mini poster book, and yes, it just arrived this week, full of incredible Starship infographics and loads of other stuff too, including the Apollo program infographics, upcoming Artemis and human landing system renders, Rocket Lab's Neutron, Perseverance and Ingenuity. There is loads and loads of stuff in here. It sure is the next giant leap, so thanks for putting all that together, Tony. You can find out more from the site there in the description if you are interested. Thanks for subscribing and supporting the incredible artists out there. Likewise, for being here watching my videos each week as well, because I'm constantly thrilled to be just a little teeny part of your lives. Thanks a heap for all of the likes, the great questions and suggestions every week. It is very awesome of you. I've also got an interesting update mentioned early in the week by NASA in regard to the European Space Agency's Euclid Space Telescope. This is a future mission that I've been looking forward to for a few years now. This was originally, of course, supposed to launch on a Soyuz, but after embargo actions leaving many such missions without clearly defined rides to space, this mission has also been left in a state of limbo. The European Space Agency now looks to be leaning towards launching its Euclid mission instead on a Falcon 9 in the second half of 2023. More on that in a moment, but first a huge thanks to Squarespace today for supporting this video. Squarespace is a website building service set up for you. It doesn't matter if you are a complete novice with websites or a pro, because there are great solutions here for big companies as well. If it is just a site for yourself though, this is so easy. Head to squarespace.com, pick one of the beautiful website templates and off you go. The form system is a great way to engage an audience and get feedback. You can very rapidly set up form blocks for a contact form, surveys or polls. You can change the fonts, colors, button styles to customize your form's layout easily and have it published before you know it. One of the neat things is that you can integrate it and store the data from the form automatically. You can connect form blocks just to be delivered to an email address, or that information can flow into systems like MailChimp, Zapier or Google Drive. All of this is built right in for you, and there are great tutorials to show you how to go about doing it with no professionals needed. Check it out by heading to squarespace.com/MarcusHouse and you will save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain with the link right there in the description below. So yes, will the Euclid mission instead fly on Falcon 9? It may seem odd that the decision was not made to instead launch on an Ariane 5 rocket, but that is due to there being a lack of remaining rockets of that type left, and the new Ariane 6 has not yet had its first launch, so that would be a long way off. At this point in time, Falcon 9 seems to be the best option. I'm really excited for this mission because it is aiming to map the geometry of the universe to more completely understand and research more deeply the concept of dark matter and dark energy. It's been extremely elusive, of course, to discover directly, but as far as we can determine from the effects that it has on visible objects, we can infer that all this mysterious hidden energy makes up most of the energy in the cosmos. Experts estimate that all of the matter that we can detect only accounts for about 5% of the total amount of mass and energy that the current model suggests that there should be. Well, the instruments on the Euclid mission are going to investigate the distance redshift relationship and the evolution of the cosmic structures. Now, without going too deep into how we measure this, ESA explains it nicely right here. If objects are coming towards us, the wavelengths are compressed, shifting them towards the blue, whereas if an object is moving away, the waves are stretched, making them appear redshifted. It really is amazing just how much that we can determine from this simple effect. It's very similar, of course, to the Doppler effect that we can pick up and hear with sound waves. I always think that an F1 passing by at high speed is the best demonstration of this than anything. The sound waves are compressed and higher pitched as the car approaches, and then the sound becomes stretched and lower pitched after it passes by. So yeah, kind of similar idea, but instead precisely measuring light redshifts of galaxies and clusters of galaxies while looking back in time up to 10 billion years or so. By doing this, Euclid should be able to cover the entire period in which dark energy has had a significant role in accelerating the expansion of the universe. This spacecraft weighs in at a little over 2 tons, something similar to a Tesla Model S, and this 3D render here of the Euclid payload module with its 2 instruments is a neat one to check out. The visual imager is at the top and the near-infrared spectrometer and photometer on the right. The telescope mirrors are located here underneath the base plate. Then we have the real images of the actual flight assembly here. That is pretty cool, and it's going to be one of the big launches in 2023, so it's exciting to see ESA lining up for a Falcon 9 launch. And if you love space telescopes, stay tuned a little longer because we have some sweet updates from James Webb shortly too. Okay, so another Starlink launch by Falcon 9 late this week as well. Flight 10 here for booster 1062, heading off in the morning on Thursday from Slick 40 at Cape Canaveral. As tweeted by SpaceX this week, Starlink Aviation is now a thing, and once installed, passengers will be able to access high-speed and low-latency internet within a flight. Just imagine that. You walk onto an aircraft, connect up to its Wi-Fi, and then you are capable of streaming, video calls, and gaming at any any altitude. It would be able to deliver up to 350 megabits per second to an aircraft, which, when divided across the passengers, would be enough to support an entire flight. The antenna itself here is interesting. It is stated to be a low-profile aero terminal featuring an electronically steered phased array antenna, which enables all new levels of reliability, redundancy, and performance. Yep, that is the sales pitch right there. Just think about the capability that we all have here now that didn't exist only a year or two ago. It really is quite incredible. It is also worth noting the fine print here stating that the product is in development and availability will be subject to regulatory approval. Saying that, we know that airlines such as Hawaiian Airlines plan to be rolling this out in 2023, and I'm sure it will then come to many others very quickly. Anyway, back to this most recent delivery of 54 Starlink satellites to orbit. There was no problem at all sticking the landing for the 10th time on the drone ship A Shortfall of Gravitas, and that mission was a wrap. Now over 3,200 satellites in orbit. We have some exciting updates from United Launch Alliance for you this week. ULA's Vulcan launch vehicle is nearing completion in their factory in Alabama. It was awaiting, of course, the installation of its BE-4 engines, and shared here are a few images of the engines themselves from CEO Tori Bruno right before they were installed onto the boosters. So yeah, it seems as though United Launch Alliance is finally nearing the end of the development of its next generation Vulcan Centaur launch vehicle. Although there have been delays like pretty much every other rocket manufacturer, it is exciting to see the final steps as they head towards the first launch, which looks to be happening in the first quarter of next year. After its engines are all completely installed, the Vulcan vehicle will be shipped to Cape Canaveral, hopefully sometime in November. After it reaches the launch site, the following 2 months will be full of multiple tanking tests and other milestones, including, of course, a wet dress rehearsal. One of the very first missions to be launched is Astrobotic's Peregrine Lander, part of NASA's commercial Lunar Payload Services program to land various payloads on the surface of the Moon. Along with that, it will also launch satellites for Amazon's Project Kuiper. It's always really exciting to see a first flight, but a flight of this new beast in particular with the very first BE-4 engines is going to be particularly astounding. A quick update on the Firefly mission. It was great to see the successful launch on October the 1st. The second mission here, dubbed To the Black, had several satellites on board serving as demonstration payloads. These were all destined for a circular orbit at an altitude of 300 kilometers or 186 miles. The flight itself all seemed to go well, with the team reaching orbit and achieving a second stage relight, but several days had passed when orbit tracking experts like astronomer Jonathan McDowell here observed a lower altitude had actually been reached. It wasn't long, however, before the atmospheric drag pulled the satellites back to a fiery end within a week from launch. In the end, all was not lost though. The clients who went along for the ride were still able to obtain the data that they needed, even though they had less time than expected. It is not long until Firefly are going to attempt to fly again around November this year, but it is speculated that the timeline could slip due to hardware updates to the Alpha launch vehicle and additional data analysis. So we all know how hard reaching orbit can be, and this incredible journey that has made SpaceX the cost-effective launch provider powerhouse that we see today is really quite astounding. We also know Elon Musk founded the Boring Company at the end of 2016, dedicated to infrastructure and tunnel construction. Well, Elon and the amazing talent at SpaceX can now lay claim to creating a second Boring Company now, it would appear, even if just loosely by definition. So what am I talking about? Okay, it is in the wake of the return to Earth of Crew 4 last week. It was really interesting to note a statement by Sarah Walker, SpaceX's Director of Dragon Mission Management.
I'll say from my perspective, watching the vehicle data those 5.5 months was delightfully boring while the crew got to do all the exciting work on board ISS. That's exactly how we like it. The Freedom vehicle performed beautifully the whole time, and especially today on the day of its return.
So, wow, delightfully boring, hey? That really is a pretty clear statement of the confidence in Crew Dragon and the commercial crew program if I ever heard one. Of course, it's not just crew missions either. The big takeaway from all of this is what we have learned from these activities. It is, for the most part, all transferable to the Starship program, which will eventually take over from Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy. Given that we are all eagerly awaiting that first launch, I hope that what we all bring to you each week here still captivates your imagination destination. Although this stage in the process is taking quite a bit longer than anticipated, sometimes it's not about the destination, but the journey. So thanks again for checking out the channel every week and joining me on this crazy ride. Now, before I do sign off for the week, I really want to just quickly share this fantastic image with you all. This one is yet another jaw dropper from the James Webb Space Telescope. This is the Pillars of Creation that reside within the Eagle Nebula, which were first made famous by the spectacular images provided by the Hubble Space Telescope. Well, feast your eyes on this brand new perspective. Now, we've had a nice infrared image of this region taken by Hubble before, so a lot of the stars occluded by all of the dust here were already known. However, with Webb, we can see the more dynamic forces at play within the interstellar medium. As a result, we are able to obtain better information regarding the formation and the birth of new stars. We can pretty much directly see gas collapsing around these stellar nurseries and the warm glow from starbirth. This is James Webb delivering as promised. Just when you think you know something about the universe, it often just turns into the tip of another giant iceberg. Almost every week now, more jaw-dropping images emerge, so I just can't wait to see what's going to be captured next. A massive thank you to the terrific patrons and YouTube members all listed right here, helping every month to do what I do with the team here. If you want to help out as well, patreon.com/MarcusHouse. That gives you access to our closed Discord group so that we can all chat and add free versions of these videos as well. If you like the merch designs like this one here, you can pick that up on pretty much any color you like, and there are even loads of mugs, bottles, hats and accessories, another great way to support as well. Today in the bottom left, I've got the deep dive video on artificial gravity released a few weeks back. If you missed it, that was a blast to make that one. On the right, a bunch of other interesting deep dive topics as well. Thank you as always for watching all this way through. Enjoy the weekend, and I'll see you for the next video.